Silence is not empty. It's full of the answers you've been running from. When they don't call or message you for a long time, it means something. Maybe not what you want to hear, but exactly what you need to understand. And folks, that's where most people mess up. They take silence as nothing, as a pause, as a temporary glitch. But it's not a glitch, it's a signal. And today, we're going to break it wide open. Hey folks, imagine this. You're standing in a room, bright lights, loud music, people everywhere. But the moment someone stops talking to you, the music goes quiet, the lights dim, the crowd disappears. Now it's just you, in silence, and your mind. It starts spinning. Did I mess up? Should I reach out? Maybe they're just busy? But what you don't realize is that silence isn't the pause, it's the performance. It's the real message hidden between all the noise. And sometimes, the silence screams louder than 1,000 explanations. We live in a world where people think attention equals affection. We think that when someone stops messaging us, it's just a phase, that they'll come back, that maybe they're testing us, and maybe they are. But more often than not, my friends, they're showing you exactly where you stand. We just don't want to believe it. Why? Because the truth stings. It punches the ego. You know, people treat silence like it's soft, but it's not. Silence is brutal. Silence is bold. Silence is a slap dressed as a whisper. And the moment you start treating it like a teacher instead of a tragedy, that's when the shift happens. Like Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. When they don't call or message for a long time, that's not them forgetting you. It's them prioritizing something else. Maybe it's distraction, maybe it's someone new, maybe it's their own ego. But it's not your job to decode their silence. It's your job to respond with self-respect. Folks, don't go chasing echoes in empty rooms. You don't keep knocking on a door that someone clearly locked from the inside. You build another one, your own. Let me tell you something a bit funny but true. Sometimes people leave you on read, like they're holding a throne, like their silence is royalty and your curiosity is their entertainment. Don't give them that crown. Take it back. Because when you stop reacting to silence with fear and start responding with stillness, that's when the real power kicks in. And I get it. I really do. Silence can feel like being ghosted by the universe itself. Like everyone disappeared just when you needed to feel seen. But let me ask you, have you been seeing yourself lately? Because the silence isn't just about them pulling away. It's also about you being redirected. The pain you feel now, it's not punishment, it's protection. And maybe, just maybe, it's promotion. So today, my friends, we're going to break the lies, lift the fog, and remind you who you are without anyone else's text to prove it. If they don't message you, you don't message your worth. You remember it, you hold it, you own it, because the silence isn't your enemy. It's your mirror. Write this in the comments if you feel this right now. I choose calm power. Just those 3 words. Say it loud in your head. Say it soft in your soul. And if you're ready to go deeper with me, hit that like button, press subscribe, and let's walk this path together. Stay with me. It's about to get real. Number 1. The silence wasn't an accident. It was a message. Rarely do people disappear by accident. Most silence is strategy. Let's not sugarcoat it. When someone goes quiet for days, weeks, or even longer, that's not an accident. That's not some harmless little coincidence the universe just tossed into your path. That's communication. That's clarity. And it might not come with punctuation or grammar, but trust me, it speaks volumes. And what it says everything you've been trying not to see. Now picture this, my friend. You're walking down a long hallway. Each step echoes. You reach a door at the end. It used to swing open without knocking. Now it's closed. locked, quiet, and yet you keep knocking. You think maybe they didn't hear you, maybe they're asleep, maybe they're just dealing with life, but deep down, you know, they're awake, they're aware, they've just chosen not to answer. That door didn't close itself, and the longer you stand there, the more your hope turns into self-doubt. Thoughts creep in. Did I say too much? Was I too distant? Too available? Should I just text once more, just to check in? But let me stop you right there, because this is where most people slip. They confuse silence with confusion. But silence isn't confusion, it's conclusion. It's the result of choices, not the absence of them. People don't accidentally stop messaging you. They don't accidentally go radio silent for weeks. They choose not to call. They choose not to respond. And that choice tells you exactly where you stand. But I know it hurts to admit that, because admitting that means you're not a priority, and no one wants to feel like they've been pushed to the bottom of someone's list, especially after you've placed them at the top of yours. So instead, we make excuses. We soften their silence with stories. Maybe they're going through something. They've just been super busy lately. They probably forgot. They'll get back to me. But let me give it to you straight. If someone wanted to talk to you, they would. That's it. That's the truth we try to bury under excuses and fantasies, because the truth is uncomfortable. It threatens the illusion. And folks, we'd rather believe a lie than face the discomfort of clarity. Like Seneca said, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. And how much time have we wasted hoping silence would change into something it was never meant to be? Now, I'm not saying everyone who goes quiet is cruel. Sometimes people pull back because they're lost. Sometimes it's not about you. But here's the key. It's also not your job to decode them. You are not the interpreter of their silence. You are the guardian of your peace. And when someone stops showing up, that's your cue. Not your cue to chase, but your cue to choose. Choose distance over desperation. Choose stillness over spirals. Choose dignity over begging for crumbs. And I get it. It's hard. It feels like you're losing something. But what if you're not losing? What if you're being spared? What if their silence is the redirection you never asked for but absolutely needed? Because the moment you stop taking silence personally, you start taking it seriously. And that shift, my friends, is power. Think of it like a garden. You water the plants that grow. You don't pour your energy into soil that's stopped responding. If something isn't blooming, step back. Let the seasons do their work. Some things were never meant to grow again, and you weren't meant to wilt trying to fix it. Now you might be thinking, but what if they come back? And sure, maybe they will. But here's the real question. What version of you will they find if they do? Because that's the real work. Not waiting, not wondering, but building. So that if they ever return, they don't find the same man staring at a locked door. They find someone who built a new one, stronger, quieter, and already open to better. Let this be the wake-up call. When they don't message you, don't message your worth. Don't let their silence narrate your value. Let it sharpen your vision. Let it tighten your standards. Let it remind you your peace isn't up for negotiation. So if you're in that space right now, if your phone's been dry, your thoughts loud, and the silence heavy, just know this isn't punishment. It's preparation. It's your moment to finally stop asking why they stopped caring and start asking why you kept holding on to someone who didn't show up. You don't owe them another message. You don't owe them closure. You owe yourself freedom. And freedom doesn't come when they call. It comes when you stop waiting for them to. If you've ever sat in that space, wondering why they disappeared, why they couldn't even explain, then type this in the comments right now. I heard the message. That's your affirmation today. That's your moment of clarity. That's how you show yourself and the world around you that you're done playing translator for someone else's silence. Say it loud, say it proud, say it even if it still stings, because that's the step. That's the path, and we're walking it together. Now, stay with me, because next, we're going to break the cycle of emotional chasing and step into something even more powerful, the moment they wait for you to break, and why you never should. Let's go. Number 2, they're waiting to see if you'll break your frame. When someone stops calling or messaging you, sometimes it's not because they've let go, it's because they want to see if you will. That silence you're sitting in. It's not always absence, it's a setup, a stage, and you're the one under the spotlight, not to perform, but to see if you'll fold, if you'll panic, if you'll break your frame. You see, my friends, people don't always test you with arguments or insults. Sometimes they test you with silence, with distance, with long gaps and unanswered messages. And deep down, they're not just waiting to see if you care. They're watching to see how you care. Do you chase? Do you beg? Do you unravel the moment they pull back? That's what they're after. Not love, not connection, but confirmation. Imagine a man standing in a storm, wind hitting his face, cold settling into his bones. He could run inside, he could scream at the sky, he could panic, but instead he closes his eyes, breathes, and stands still. That's presence, that's power. That's what they're not expecting from you. They're expecting the old version of you, the one who double-texted, explained himself too much, who tried to fix what wasn't broken on his side, the version who needed validation to feel worthy, the one who couldn't handle silence because he never learned how to speak to himself. But you're not that man anymore. Because here's the truth, anyone can be calm when things are calm, but true strength is revealed in discomfort. And silence, that's a test of emotional strength most people fail. They mistake the pullback as rejection, when sometimes it's just manipulation dressed in mystery. And I know the questions that come up. Maybe if I just say one more thing. Should I clarify what I meant that day? Maybe they just want me to prove I care. Stop. That's the bait. That's the emotional trap. You start dancing to music they're not even playing. And worst of all, you start breaking character to impress someone who already stepped off the stage. The Stoic doesn't break frame. He doesn't abandon his peace to go looking for chaos. Like Marcus Aurelius said, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. That applies here. If the message isn't mutual, don't send it. If the energy isn't reciprocal, don't match it. Your silence becomes your standard, not your surrender. They're pulling back to see if you'll step forward. But if every time they retreat, you chase, guess what? You've taught them they can control your emotions with absence, that your confidence has a leash, and they're the one holding it. Is that really how you want to be remembered? Listen carefully. It's not wrong to care. It's not weak to want connection. But it is dangerous to let someone else's inconsistency govern your peace. You are not a puppet dancing for attention. You're a man sculpting himself in silence. And you don't have to prove anything to someone who's trying to test you instead of talk to you. So let them wait. Let them wonder. Let them stare at their phone and think, why hasn't he reached out yet? Because this time, your silence is not confusion. It's command. And that command, it changes everything. Now I know that it takes discipline, it takes inner work. Your ego will scream, your heart might ache, but your soul will start to rise. And that's what this is about, rising, becoming, and staying in character even when no one's applauding. If you've ever felt the pull to break your frame just to keep someone's attention, drop this in the comments right now. I hold my frame. That's your power. That's your new normal. Let the world know you're not bending for breadcrumbs anymore. You're building a backbone. And stay with me, because next we're tearing down the biggest illusion of all, the lie that says, if they're not messaging you, they must still care deep down. No more fantasy, just facts. Let's keep going. Number 3. If they wanted to reach out, they would. Period. Never beg for a spot in someone's life. If they care, you won't have to fight for it. Let's stop dressing up avoidance like confusion. Let's stop putting perfume on disinterest and calling it mystery. If they wanted to talk to you, they would. If they wanted to call, check in, show up, they would. It's not about time. It's not about fear. It's not even about the right moment. It's about priority, and right now, you're not theirs. That's hard to hear, I know, because we've all been there, refreshing the screen, staring at a blank message thread, convincing ourselves they must be overwhelmed, exhausted, busy. But let's break the lie right now. People aren't too busy for what matters to them. That's not a schedule problem. That's a choice. You didn't get dropped because they forgot. You got dropped because they decided not to carry you forward. And that silence you're hearing, that's not life getting in the way. That's them choosing something else. Imagine standing outside a house, knocking on the door. You hear laughter inside, music playing. The lights are on, and yet no one opens the door. You knock again and again, hoping they didn't hear you. But deep down, you know, they heard you. They just didn't move. That's what it's like when you keep sending energy to someone who stopped responding. You're not unheard, you're being ignored. And those are two very different things. But the mind doesn't want to accept that, because if they truly didn't care, if they truly lost interest, that means your story doesn't end the way you wanted it to, and we hate that. So we rewrite it. We tell ourselves they must be healing, they must be unsure. We tell ourselves they'll message soon, they just need space. But my friends, space has an expiration date. If someone wants you in their life, they'll find a way to pull you in, not push you out. They'll call, they'll check in. They won't let days turn into weeks without making you feel seen, valued, included. It's not rocket science, it's emotional honesty. And I know what you're thinking. But what if they're scared? What if they don't know how to reach out? Look, fear doesn't paralyze people when love is genuine. We fight through fear for things that matter to us. We climb through discomfort for people we care about. And if they're not doing that for you, that's your answer. The Stoic man doesn't beg to be remembered. He doesn't chase what withdraws. He sees silence not as rejection, but as revelation. Like Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. So how will you react to silence? With self-doubt or with self-respect? You weren't put here to play emotional detective. You don't need to analyze every breadcrumb they left behind. You don't need to replay the last message 50 times looking for clues. If they wanted to reach out, they would have. And if they didn't, then it's not your job to remind them of your worth. It's your job to remember it yourself. This is where the shift happens, the pivot point, the moment you stop trying to be chosen and start choosing yourself. Because the longer you wait for someone else to validate you, the further you drift from the man you're becoming. The man who doesn't chase closed doors. The man who respects silence enough to walk away from it. You don't need a message from them. You need a message from within. And here it is. You are not too much. You are not forgettable. You are not invisible. You are simply standing at a door that no longer opens, and it's time to build your own. So if this moment hit something deep inside you, if you've been sitting in silence wondering why they haven't reached out, type this in the comments. If they wanted to, they would. Say it out loud. Put it on your mirror. Burn it into your habits, and let the world know you're done waiting. Now stay with me, because in the next part, we're going even deeper. We're about to face the hardest possibility of all, the one where they didn't just lose interest, they replaced you. But don't panic, because the way you respond to that truth, that's where real power begins. Let's go. Number 4, you've been replaced by distractions or someone else. If they replaced you quickly, they were never holding you deeply. Let's cut through the fog and face the possibility most people try to avoid. When someone goes silent for too long, it's not always because they're healing. It's not always because they're lost in their own mind. Sometimes it's simpler and sharper. You've been replaced, maybe by a new person, maybe by endless scrolling, drama, distractions, dopamine hits. But the result is the same. Your space in their life was filled by something or someone else. Now, I know what you're thinking. How could they move on so fast? How could I mean so little after everything we shared? That's the sting, isn't it? That slow, quiet burn of realizing you were once central in their life, and now you're optional. Background noise, a ghost in their gallery. But hear me clearly, my friend. Being replaced doesn't make you worthless. It makes them reckless. Because when someone replaces presence with performance, something real with something temporary, they're not upgrading. They're distracting themselves from what they couldn't understand or weren't mature enough to hold. Imagine you built a fire. You fed it every day, wood, warmth, effort, attention. Then someone walks away from it, midwinter, and decides to chase fireworks instead. It looks exciting at first, loud, colorful, thrilling. But fireworks fade, they burn bright and disappear. And by the time they realize that, the fire they left behind has gone cold. That's what happens when someone trades you for novelty. And trust me, it's not because you weren't enough. It's because they didn't know how to value what was in front of them. Some people don't recognize peace until they're surrounded by chaos. Some don't feel real until they're drowning in fake. And some don't understand loyalty until they've been used for sport. So yes, maybe you've been replaced. But here's the truth you need to grab onto with both hands. That doesn't define you, it frees you. Because anyone who could switch up on you that easily was never rooted in anything real to begin with. And now, the illusion is gone. Now you get to rebuild, this time without confusion. The Stoic man doesn't collapse under rejection. He doesn't crumble because someone else couldn't see his value. He returns to himself, not to prove anything, but to remind himself who he's always been. Like Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know the truth about you." So stop asking, why did they choose them over me? And start asking, why did I ever allow someone unsure of me to occupy so much of my heart? That's the real shift. That's the power reclaiming itself. And don't fall into the trap of comparison. That's a game you'll never win. You'll look at their social media, you'll see smiling photos, new stories, new faces, and your mind will try to write scripts that weren't yours to begin with. They look so happy now. Maybe they're better suited. But remember, people only post what they want the world to see. Just because they're posting doesn't mean they're healing. Just because they're smiling doesn't mean they're not aching inside for the presents they threw away. You're not in a competition, you're in a transformation, and the minute you stop viewing their new connection or distraction as your replacement, you start stepping into something higher. Clarity, control, calm. So let them be distracted, let them run toward the temporary, let them feed on attention, newness, whatever gives them the next dopamine hit. But you return to structure, to solitude, to strength. You invest in the version of yourself that no one can replace because it was never built to impress, it was built to endure. And if this part hit you hard, I want you to write this in the comments right now. I am not replaceable. Let that be your line in the sand, your new foundation. Say it to yourself when doubt creeps in. Whisper it when you see their name again. Shout it, if you need to, when the silence feels unbearable. Because you're not here to chase what left. You're here to outgrow what couldn't stay. And trust me, the version of you that rises from this, that's the one they'll remember. That's the one they'll regret losing. Now stay with me, because next, we're about to flip the whole dynamic. What happens when your silence becomes the mirror they never expected? When you disappear and they start to feel it? Let's find out. Number 5. You've been replaced by distractions or someone else. If they replaced you quickly, they were never holding you deeply. Let's cut through the fog and face the possibility most people try to avoid. When someone goes silent for too long, it's not always because they're healing. It's not always because they're lost in their own mind. Sometimes it's simpler and sharper. You've been replaced, maybe by a new person, maybe by endless scrolling, drama, distractions, dopamine hits. But the result is the same. Your space in their life was filled by something or someone else. Now, I know what you're thinking. How could they move on so fast? How could I mean so little after everything we shared? That's the sting, isn't it? That slow, quiet burn of realizing you were once central in their life, and now you're optional, background noise, a ghost in their gallery. But hear me clearly, my friend. Being replaced doesn't make you worthless. It makes them reckless. Because when someone replaces presence with performance, something real with something temporary, they're not upgrading. They're distracting themselves from what they couldn't understand or weren't mature enough to hold. Imagine you built a fire. You fed it every day, wood, warmth, effort, attention. Then someone walks away from it midwinter and decides to chase fireworks instead. It looks exciting at first, loud, colorful, thrilling. But fireworks fade, they burn bright and disappear, and by the time they realize that, the fire they left behind has gone cold. That's what happens when someone trades you for novelty. And trust me, it's not because you weren't enough, it's because they didn't know how to value what was in front of them. Some people don't recognize peace until they're surrounded by chaos. Some don't feel real until they're drowning in fake. And some don't understand loyalty until they've been used for sport. So yes, maybe you've been replaced, but here's the truth you need to grab onto with both hands. That doesn't define you, it frees you, because anyone who could switch up on you that easily was never rooted in anything real to begin with. And now the illusion is gone. Now you get to rebuild, this time without confusion. The Stoic man doesn't collapse under rejection. He doesn't crumble because someone else couldn't see his value. He returns to himself, not to prove anything, but to remind himself who he's always been. Like Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know the truth about you." So stop asking, why did they choose them over me? And start asking, why did I ever allow someone unsure of me to occupy so much of my heart? That's the real shift. That's the power reclaiming itself. And don't fall into the trap of comparison. That's a game you'll never win. You'll look at their social media, you'll see smiling photos, new stories, new faces, and your mind will try to write scripts that weren't yours to begin with. They look so happy now. Maybe they're better suited. But remember, people only post what they want the world to see. Just because they're posting doesn't mean they're healing. Just because they're smiling doesn't mean they're not aching inside for the presents they threw away. You're not in a competition, you're in a transformation. And the minute you stop viewing their new connection or distraction as your replacement, you start stepping into something higher. Clarity, control, calm. So let them be distracted, let them run toward the temporary. Let them feed on attention, newness, whatever gives them the next dopamine hit. But you return to structure, to solitude, to strength. You invest in the version of yourself that no one can replace because it was never built to impress. It was built to endure. And if this part hit you hard, I want you to write this in the comments right now. I am not replaceable. Let that be your line in the sand, your new foundation. Say it to yourself when doubt creeps in. Whisper it when you see their name again. Shout it, if you need to, when the silence feels unbearable. Because you're not here to chase what left. You're here to outgrow what couldn't stay. And trust me, the version of you that rises from this, that's the one they'll remember. That's the one they'll regret losing. Now stay with me, because next, we're about to flip the whole dynamic. What happens when your silence becomes the mirror they never expected? When you disappear and they start to feel it? Let's find out. Number 6, your silence becomes a mirror. They can't escape. When you stop chasing, you stop blurring the mirror they were supposed to face. At first, they won't notice. They'll assume you're still watching, still waiting, still quietly hurting in the shadows. Because that's what you always did, right? You gave them space, you gave them grace, and every time they pulled away, you stayed, emotionally available, spiritually exposed, waiting like a light left on in case they wanted to come home. But not this time, because this time you didn't beg, you didn't explain, you didn't chase, you just stopped. You didn't slam the door, you didn't throw a tantrum, you simply fell silent. And in that silence, something unexpected began to happen, not in you, but in them. They started to feel the void they thought they could ignore. And suddenly, your silence wasn't quiet anymore. It became a mirror, one they didn't ask for, but can't look away from. That's what happens when you stop filling the space. When you stop compensating for their distance with your presence. The energy shifts, the balance tips, and the person who thought they held the power starts to feel powerless. Imagine this, a room where you used to echo, where your voice used to fill the corners, where your texts lit up their screen, where your energy was a constant current in their life. Then, one day, it stops. The room is still. No echo, no trace, just space. And in that space, they begin to hear themselves, loudly, clearly, and often painfully. See, most people don't notice your presence. They notice your absence. They feel it like cold air rushing into a space that used to be warm. And they may not admit it. They may not show it. But they feel it. That scrolling without finding your name. That silent story view with no like. That message they half type and never send. That's the sound of your mirror working, quietly, powerfully. And here's where it hits. Your silence is not punishment, it's reflection. You're not trying to make them suffer. You're not manipulating. You're simply not chasing. And that alone is enough to unnerve someone who was used to holding your attention without effort. They start wondering, why hasn't he messaged? Is he over me? Did he meet someone else? But the truth is, you didn't move on to someone. You moved on to yourself, to your peace, to your center. And that shift, it's louder than any argument, any paragraph, any late night, I miss you. This is what Stoicism teaches us. You don't pull away to control others. You pull away to control yourself. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." That includes how they respond, whether they notice, whether they reach back. That's not your concern anymore. Your concern is your alignment. And let's be real, they might call it cold. They might say you changed. But the truth is, they changed first. You just stopped pretending it didn't affect you. You stopped feeding a bond that was built on your effort and their absence. You got tired of pouring from an empty cup, and instead of yelling, you went silent. Instead of chasing, you stood still. It's not easy, I know. Every part of you will want to explain, to reach out, to check in. But that's the test. Will you flinch? Will you fall out of frame? Or will you let the silence finish the sentence your heart never got to say? Because the moment you don't text back, the moment you don't engage, the moment you walk away without announcing it, that's the moment they begin to feel everything you carried. Not out of revenge, not out of pride, but because energy doesn't lie. They can feel the cord being cut, and if there was anything real behind it, they'll feel the loss, not just of attention, but of access. So today, if you're in that space, if you've gone quiet and you're wondering if it matters, type this in the comments. My silence speaks truth. Say it like a vow. Say it like a shield. Because this is more than a quiet phase. This is a declaration, a transition, a return to you. And stay close, because next, we'll dive into what happens when you refuse to break character, even when every part of you is begging to reach out. That's when you become untouchable. Let's keep going. Number 7. They're waiting for you to break character. The strongest man is not the one who shouts the loudest, but the one who doesn't flinch when silence surrounds him. Let's be brutally honest. Sometimes when someone pulls away, they're not walking away for good. They're not gone. They're watching. Not through words, not through conversation, but through silence. A long, drawn-out silence that isn't meant to disconnect. It's meant to test. They're waiting, not for you to grow, not for you to move on, but for you to break character. This isn't just absence, it's psychological theater. They're watching to see if the version of you that walked away with grace was real or just a performance. Was that calm silence you kept a decision or a tactic, and now they're giving you enough room to expose yourself? And most people fail this test because the silence gets longer and the urge to reach out gets louder. They cave. They send that one message just to check in, just to clear the air, just to make peace. But beneath it all, they're just trying to fill the gap that was intentionally created. And once you break character, they know they're in control again. Imagine an actor on stage. The crowd goes quiet. He forgets his line. The silence grows. He panics, breaks role, walks off stage. But the Stoic? He stays still. He owns the silence. He turns the pause into power. That's what you must become. A person whose identity is not a role, but a rooted reality. Because if your peace only exists when they're validating you, then you're not grounded, you're tethered. And when someone realizes that all they have to do is go quiet to pull you in, they'll use that silence like a leash. That's not connection, that's control. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." In this moment, being one means you don't chase what's testing you. You don't break your principles to please someone who vanished just to see if you'd flinch. And let's be real, maybe they're hoping you'll fold. Maybe they're hoping you'll reach out just so they can ignore you again, just so they can feel that hit of power, that sense of they still want me, not because they want you back, but because they want reassurance that you haven't moved on. But this is where your evolution shows. You don't reach for old patterns. You don't explain your silence. You don't ask them if they still care. You already have your answer. It's not in what they say. It's in what they do not say. In the messages they didn't send. In the calls they didn't make. They left the stage. You stayed seated. And now the spotlight is on you, not to act, but to remain unchanged. That's the character test. And listen, it's not easy. This isn't about being heartless. You still feel, you still care. But you don't negotiate with emotional games. You're not a puppet tied to invisible strings. You're a person who's mastered the art of not reacting, not because you don't have feelings, but because your feelings don't make the decisions anymore. This is power, when you hold the line, even when no one's clapping, when you keep your standard, even when silence tries to shake it loose. If you're in this moment right now, if you've gone silent, if you've stayed calm, and you can feel them watching, waiting for you to break, type this in the comments. They won't see me fold. Let it be your war cry, your promise to yourself, because folding now would mean throwing away every inch of growth you've earned. And the truth is, if the only version of you they respected was the one who chased, begged, and reacted, then they never saw the real you, the grounded you, the disciplined you, the one who doesn't need to prove anything. Now stay with me, because next we'll talk about what this silence is really doing. It's not just frustrating you, it's reclaiming you. And that, my friends, is the real victory. Let's move forward. Number 8. It's your chance to reclaim yourself. The moment you stop chasing them is the moment you start finding you. This isn't the end. It never was. The silence they left you with wasn't a wall. It was a mirror, a reflection of everything you gave away, trying to keep what was already slipping. And now, in this space, in this stillness, in this quiet, they didn't expect you to survive. you reclaim yourself, not through revenge, not through proving a point, but by finally realizing that you were never broken, just distracted by the hope they'd return, distracted by the potential of who they could have been, distracted by a version of you that waited, begged, and folded just to stay connected to someone who couldn't see the value standing right in front of them. But that version of you, he's done. That era is over. You don't need closure from them. You need clarity from within, and clarity begins when you stop looking at the silence as abandonment and start seeing it as alignment. Think about it. How many times did you overextend yourself? How many messages did you send that didn't deserve to be written? How many calls did you make, hoping your voice would remind them you still mattered? And how many pieces of yourself did you give away just to keep the illusion alive? Now comes the moment that matters, not what they do, not what they say, not whether they come back or confess they miss you. The moment that matters is this one, where you stop needing them to, because they were never the destination, they were the detour, and now you're being guided back to the only place you truly needed to be, yourself. Like Seneca once wrote, you act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire. My friend, stop fearing loss as if you're not capable of rising again, because the truth is, this space, this silence, this void you're learning to sit with, it's not punishment, it's preparation. This is where you go back to the gym, not to look good for them, but to build your strength for you. This is where you wake up early, not to see if they messaged, but because your future self needs a disciplined mind. This is where you read, study, heal, not to escape the pain, but to turn it into power. Because when you reclaim yourself, you stop waiting for someone to show up. You show up for your life, for your peace, for your growth. It's not about making them jealous. It's not about making them regret it. It's about rising in such a way that even if they came back tomorrow, they'd no longer recognize the version of you that used to wait. You don't need to announce your comeback. You don't need to prove anything. The people who left you won't see your transformation happening, but they'll feel it when their name no longer moves you. When the silence they left you with becomes the music that fuels your rise. So now, if you're ready to let this be your rebirth, not a breakdown, then say it out loud. Type it in the comments. I reclaim myself. Let that be your declaration, your final sentence, your new beginning. Let it echo across the silence they left behind. Let it rise like armor around your soul. Because from this point forward, the story isn't about what they didn't give, it's about what you stopped waiting for. And if this message woke something in you, if this entire journey through silence, distance, and detachment hit a part of your soul that's been buried for too long, press the like button, subscribe. Share this with someone else who needs to be reminded that they're not broken. They're being rebuilt. Because this isn't just content. This is healing. This is growth. This is real. And this is just the beginning. Let's rise together. No.